All the kids, none of them drink coffee anymore. They all drink those energy drinks.
Oh, energy, yeah.
Okay,
Too much.
welcome, and we will now call the regular council meeting for Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 to order. If you will all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay. We have an amended agenda. And hopefully everyone has one at their tank. So I would, first item would be to approve the amended agenda.
Mr. Mayo, I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Second item is to approve the consent calendar. Unless there's any questions on any of the items, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayo, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Next item is open forum. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public that wishes to make a comment or comment on something that's not on the agenda. They wish to bring something up to the council. This is their opportunity to do so. We would ask that you keep your comment to 5 minutes. Seeing no one, we will close open forum. Reports, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening, members of the council. I have my monthly report in your packet for your information, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Just a quick note that the legislature did adjourn the 2024 session, and a couple of pieces of information we have known at this point. There's still a lot of kind of assessing what finally landed with the last few hours before the session ended. The legislature did approve a 1,430-page omnibus bill containing some supplemental budget policy and tax measures. So that will be interesting to weed through that. Housing, on the housing front, great news, no limitations on local zoning and land use authority for residential development were passed this session. While legislators on both sides of the aisle committed to discussing zoning and land use preemption during the interim and redoubling efforts next session. So this will come back at some point. None of the language included in the various missing middle housing bill, people over parking bill, or multifamily by right in commercial districts bill were passed. So good news as far as today goes, but this will certainly come back next session. The legislature did not bring a bonding bill to a floor vote this session, so there is no bonding bill, unfortunately. On the tax front, the local sales tax general authority proposals from the task force were not included in the bill that was passed. So that means that the local sales tax moratorium will remain in place through 2025. For cannabis, the bill provides the changes that were made with the regulatory structure provides that a city or county seeking to establish a municipal cannabis store must be granted a license, but that would not be in a priority position before other licenses would also be able to receive approval. So essentially, a city or a county has the ability to create a municipal dispensary if it so chose to do that, along with other groups that would be eligible for a license. More to come on the cannabis conversation later on your agenda. I have an item for that item specifically to discuss. And then lastly, with respect to earned sick and safe time, there is now included an exemption for volunteer and paid on-call firefighters. And there's update on restrictions for employees with duties related to public safety during weather events. Some clarifying language with respect to that and for essential employees under some different certain circumstances. So that was just a summary on a highlight that came from the league. yesterday, I believe, with some of the known pieces, but we'll certainly share more information as it is known, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council. Thank you.
No, I can't remember, but on that sale of marijuana, was that one permitted license for every 10,000? And if so, is that countywide? So if there's 100,000 people in the county, you can have 10 within the county.
So you must issue a license, one license for every 12,500 population. And yes, if the county issues a license, there is a way potentially for cities to say that counts for our license requirement as well. But that is still also under development with the Office of Cannabis Management. So we don't have the regulatory framework yet for that.
Thank you.
That could be interesting. I did read in your report when I was reading it, Pickle and Spirits remodel or Pickle remodel of Spirits update expansion project. Do we have any more information on that? Where are we at with those?
As far as what I'm aware of at this point, I know from for the Spirits project specifically that Brian Farrell did provide the information to Schaefer's as far as what the city's interest is in expanding the building. I believe there's some work being done on Schaefer's end of things right now, and they will engage Brian when they are ready to talk about options and design, things like that. As far as the Pickle conversation, the building conversation, I do have a scheduled meeting with Terry Welling tomorrow. He was working to get some additional information to kind of get this going, and hopefully we'll be able to pick that up and move forward. I don't know if Joe or Jesse have any other updates outside of that.
Is there anything else?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. I just curious. So, all right. Anyone have any other questions for the city administrator? Okay, hearing none. City attorney.
Good evening. I don't have anything to report here.
Okay. City engineer.
Good evening. I don't really have anything to report. I can just say that I've been working with Tom and Amber on trying to finish the Gull Lake Trail punch list and working on some of the questions that Tom has regarding the bonding, street bonding, and also lift station 1, trying to figure out what the capacity of that is and how to move forward. Thank you.
Is there a deadline on the funding sources that we have for the trail? Are we up against the deadline?
It's end of June.
Yes, the grant expiration is June 30th, so we need to have substantial completion of outstanding items complete before then. We do have time after that to submit reimbursement and final bills and things like that. And so WITSET is aware of that and working with Anderson Brothers to get those items completed.
Okay. New business. Under new business, first item is an update of the chamber, from the chamber reference, Freedom Days parade event and events.
Mayor Ann, I can take this to start with, if that's all right.
Certainly.
I just want to, thank you. I just want to mention that one of the additions in your packet was the memo that was provided to the council in February, just to provide some background information and a reminder, because after a few months, we kind of forget where we left things and what we were looking to receive back in May. So in February, when the chamber events schedule was approved, there were some additional follow-up items that the council was looking to receive back in May as they got closer to specifically the Freedom Days event. So I provided that memo for you as reference, and we do have a map of the route. I do believe that it is staying the same as last year. And then a couple of bullet point information from Chief Taylor. It has also been provided in your packet. I think with that, maybe I'll just ask Pam, any other changes or information that the council should know as a high level? I don't think there's anything, but if you wouldn't mind just mentioning, and we hit the button for me. Thank you.
There isn't. I mean, we hope to go through with a new route. We'll look at it again in 2025, but Since we couldn't expand, everything is the same. The route will go right where it has before. We'll have more security this year. I think that's in Craig's bullet point. Yeah, and just make it a little more safe. There's no advertising for it this year whatsoever. So in past, we have done to grow it. We're maxed out, so I'm done advertising.
But I know that he says basically we were unable to make any meaningful changes. I can't remember what the changes we were looking at other than the route.
Just the route.
Just the route? Okay.
Yeah,
So it's nothing to freak out. Okay.
no,
Well,
No, go ahead.
the route and with the memo, you know, road closures, et cetera. You know, I guess one of the things that got brought up last time with this was some of the safety concerns, you know, with the fire department, allowing the fire department access out. You know, potentially closing one side of the street there. I know at the fire meeting, Chief Sean's here. I also talked to Chief Taylor, and, you know, I still think maybe some of that, in my opinion, needs to be addressed from a public safety. This has continued to grow from year to year.
Mhm.
Like you just said, you know, not by hundreds, but by thousands, to the point where, you know, public safety has to take precedence over some of this stuff. And I believe that, you know, with road closures and the route or whatever, I believe still yet for this year, you know, some of that still needs to be addressed, you know, talking about it at our last fire meeting. Easy access in and out, you know, it is at the fire hall, but, obviously town's busy and we just can't have that blocked up every year, you know, still, no parking along the side of the road, you know, get fire trucks out. I still think that would be a benefit, you know, we just need to look at that and address that and have a plan in place. And I guess, you know, I don't know if that's done, you know, in my opinion, maybe that's still not done or needs some more action or discussion yet for this current year, this parade with both the fire chief and the police chief. And so at the end of the day, also, I would say that, you know, they are the leaders of this and the emergency management for the city. And, you know, I guess I want to publicly say, if they say something needs to be done in this town to keep all these people safe, we gotta go by
Mhm.
that first and foremost versus
yeah.
what
safety.
the parade needs are. Public safety has to come before the parade needs. And I guess I just want to publicly say that and say that still needs to be addressed, in my opinion, for this year, what I know of the needs, the concerns, being involved with it myself. There's still some discussion that needs to take place. Probably some no parking signs that need to be put in and an actual plan put in place, because that's what was talked about last year. And, you know, obviously in Craig's memo, he's looking for an actual change in plan to be put in place. And I don't think we want to kick that can down the road any further. And we want to address that right here, right now, this year still.
Yeah, my assumption is the fire, you can't stage the trucks in another area. One, they're in the parade, but two, it is a concern.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to work together, but, yeah, we, you know, during this time, we just can't have it so jammed up that we can't respond to emergency on the highway, whatever. During the parade, I'll just use, even during, Thanksgiving there, the Friday after Thanksgiving, right while that was going on, we had a heart attack through the other side of town. People don't know that stuff, that we were trying to get through town. These events really do take place during this stuff, and the vast majority of people don't know about it. And we have to be able to get out, we have to be able to get through town, we have to be able to do this. And that's just an example from this last fall. So, yeah, definitely, more discussion needs to take place, and we need to implement that this year versus next year.
Does Chief Bailey have any ideas?
Question, were Were you guys part of you guys were part of the crew, this committee that was meeting on this stuff, right? Were you guys involved in this?
I was not, maybe fire chief.
Were you at the meetings with them? at all?
Only one. I've only attended one meeting, and the suggestion I have is the staging of the floats. Let's put it on one side of Main Street going towards the Legion, and that will give us a clear in and out. This year's solution, we weren't going to participate in the parade at all. And after having our meeting on Tuesday night, we decided we're up front of the parade right behind the color guard. At least we hope we are this year. And as soon as we get to the end by the Dairy Queen, we're going to pull out on the roundabout and park on 371.
Oh, okay.
But this still arises a problem because the what if factor. And I know if we live our life on what ifs, we'll spend millions and millions of dollars, but we have to be prepared. So I'm requesting that Main Street or whatever that road is, Lower Cullen Road, whatever that is that goes past Popular, that the floats are staged on one side. So if we have to access our fire hall, we have one side of the street, not floats on both sides. So
Because it's blocked
that's
up
my
with
proposal.
boards ahead of time.
Yeah, that's just common sense.
Question for you. I mean, I know it's from a law enforcement perspective, we used to, with Pequot, we used to cover calls for Nisswa when they were having like their.
So
parades
someone
and
took
stuff.
it upon themselves to call the Pequot Fire Chief, which I've been dealing with today, and him and I had a conversation. Unfortunately, they have fireworks on the 3rd, and the 3rd, they're spending all day getting ready for their largest fundraiser of the pancake breakfast on the 4th. And they said, if we have a structure fire, yes, they're gonna come and make it happen, but to just pull their staff to come up and help us on the 3rd is gonna be
Is there any
extremely
other,
difficult.
are there any other departments that would be able to help you out on that?
I look at Mission's got a few. We're not gonna get anybody from Brainerd. You know, Mission's got staffing issues over there. They have 14 members. So what do you do?
Everybody's busy.
So, I mean, the simplest solution here is one side of Main Street, just stage the floats and we can get through on the other side. If we have
what's our-
to, now, we're not gonna be able to go 90 miles an hour through there, which is, you know, because there's gonna be people. But when you put floats on each side of the road,
So what's our
There-
drop dead date that we need to have an answer plan figured out?
what's the drop date?
Well, I know from a safety aspect, I mean, what do we need?
I need to know something by July 2nd, what we can do. Otherwise,
And we
my
don't-
solution is we have a solution in place now. But keep in mind, underneath the floor in there is 30,000 gallons of water. There's also water at lakes, but with the staff that we'll have on hands and the trucks there, if we had to access it, it's there.
So Mayor Ryan, our June council meeting date is the 18th. If Chief Bailey's saying he doesn't need too much advance notice, but just some, would you like some additional information to be pulled together and presented to the council in June
Yes,
to
I-
ensure that there is more detail?
Yes, I think that would be a good thing if the group could get together and figure out, the final plan for this year. And then we're gonna need to keep this addressed because of the public safety aspect was brought to our attention. We're gonna have to address it. We can't let it sit.
What is a simple solution, as you were suggesting, Chief Bailey? Simply having the floats staged on one side of the road, that's a cure-all for right now.
Yes,
And
that would
that
be a
the co-
cure-all until
Pam-
we change it.
Okay.
So I did a little more research on that before Pam steps in.
So-
So ours is gonna walk mile and a quarter is what our people are gonna walk here from end to end. When they go to Pequot the next day, it's just under 3 miles. If they go to Brainerd, it's just over 4 miles. So is the distance really an issue for one side?
No, that's not it.
Okay.
For walking?
Yeah, go
No.
ahead.
So the only issue is there's 80 floats in the parade last year. That if we lined them up all down one side, we use the Legion parking lot and down one side, they would be to, pass the turnoff to or the,
Poplar.
no,
Or like
yeah,
connection.
they're too popular now with both sides of the
Yeah.
road. So you can do the math, how far that's gonna go down one side of the road. What I think we would do at that point then is limit the floats to, if we had to go to one side, just make it so only 40 people could come. And that would reduce the people that came to see it too, which is the big problem. So
Perfect.
we would cut a lot of people.
Now you can charge the people that want to have a float and make some money off of it at the same time, because it's first come, first serve, right?
Yeah, that's free to our members first. So that's all I have to say. It's not for walking because we have golf carts to take people back and forth.
Why can't they go down the road further? There's still more real estate from the park.
Yeah. Well, because then where would we stage the people to tell them where they are at in line, and we would lose control over that long place. Keith Schwankel stands at Poplar right now, and he's like, you're float 12, you're gonna go up this far, you're gonna be on the left side, on the right side. So where do we stage that person? I mean, that's a me problem, but I mean,
You have more people and you stage down the road further. You have more real estate to go. Past Poplar, you still have a half mile to go back to the highway. But I'm just, you know,
yeah,
it's all stuff. that
I think that would be great. I don't, when I met with the committee, they don't see that working. The solution would be to limit the parade.
I
It should
guess,
have all been
So-
talked about while we were having these meetings.
right.
I guess I'm
Certainly
curious
can
why,
include this and
yeah.
I
so
can help
let's- yeah.
facilitate that.
Can you ramrod it? Because
Yeah,
obviously,
absolutely.
maybe.
We'll get everyone
I
together,
mean, this
get
should
the
have all been
details.
figured out. This isn't that hard to figure out, so it should have all been figured out way all ahead of time. And we shouldn't be here at this point doing it. Not that hard. Did it-
I would be happy to do that if the council would like to table this until June.
I would say we table it till June and then have the committee meet together again and figure out exactly what's gonna have. And the city administrator can organize it and you guys can, Sean, and I mean, we kind of know what Sean wants or what the fire department wants. Obviously, if you're gonna stretch it out all the way down there, you're gonna have to use a little more of law enforcement. You're gonna need law enforcement, additional law enforcement presence at the intersections further down, et cetera. So just how does all that work out? So you could get it back to us in June, that'd be great.
Table till June.
Motion to table,
I'll
please.
make a motion to table this item until June.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Next item. This is an approval of the Woodseth proposals reference phase 1 environmental wetland delineation and survey.
Yes, thank you. So these three items are part of the due diligence process that the council has initiated with the property purchase agreement that we have currently in place and working through this period. So as we have discussed, three components from an engineering perspective that we would look to have Woodseth complete: the phase 1 environmental site assessment, wetland delineation and boundary, and the Alta land title survey. Project work. If you have specific questions, technical questions, we can defer them to Bill. Otherwise, happy to answer any high-level questions. And we also have Bill Brecken and Steve Leary here as well if the council has questions. There will be another couple of items related to the property purchase later on your agenda as well. We have a quote for an archaeological study as to discuss later on in the agenda. But for this item, that's at least an overview for the council.
So as the archaeological survey, has that process been started, or are we waiting for that?
It will start upon approval
Of
of
the
the
delineation.
proposal tonight, yes.
Which comes later.
Yep,
Last
later
one.
on the agenda.
Are you doing all this work in-house?
Yes. Yeah, the Alta survey was done here in Baxter. The other two people are in, Alexandria. They come here, not a lot.
So the project management fee, that's to manage yourself?
Yeah, and they. Mainly.
I guess.
Meaning oversight of the, I'm just trying to clarify to the question.
I just know that usually when you have three different like this, you have to go. You know, if it all works out, they don't have to charge any time for that, great.
And this would be not to exceed,
Right.
okay. And certainly only billed if incurred. So if for some reason it's less time,
Yeah,
you would only bill that as much
Right,
as,
right.
thank you.
I mean, when I estimated my time, I just said like an hour a week for 2 months, 10 weeks.
And so This is just for the wetland on the north part. Parcel
No,
number
there's
4.
3 different proposals in there that I combined together. So the phase 1 environmental is in there, and that's like we talked about before, to analyze the existing property and make sure that there's nothing out there environmentally that's gonna impact the sale or impact what you do in the future. The wetland delineation, they just go out there, analyze all the different wetlands that are out there, try to find them, and determine the boundary. And then the Alta survey is basically creating right now, we're kind of a big picture, collected the information that way, and now we're going to try and fine tune that and collect really good information to, define all the, areas on that property.
So what takes place during the environmental site assessment? What do you physically do?
A lot of the stuff that they do is, in-house. They start off by doing a lot of analysis, through different websites and collecting that information. And then they do a field site visit to, analyze the site and determine if there's anything out there based on their, analysis, and, see what else they need to do.
But are you digging or are you just driving around looking visually?
They do some digging, yeah. Probes, hand auger probes.
Yeah, it just seems a little expensive for looking at the real estate. I guess is my thing. I mean, half of it's swamp, half of it's open field that we're buying to evaluate what's out there. I don't know, I guess that's just,
It's my understanding you have to do a phase 1 environmental
right,
study. Okay, it's also my understanding that we don't have a choice about wetland delineations and boundaries.
correct.
We have to do those 2 things. The land title survey, we're gonna have to do as well, correct? And project management is like he said, you know, if that all comes together, whatever, it's a not to exceed number. Is my understanding, talking with city planner, that all these things are gonna have to be done at one point or another anyway. As long as they're gonna be out there doing one, they might as well get it all done. So we're doing it regardless. The question is the cost, okay? But,
Yeah, I don't
it's not out
disagree.
of
I'm
line
just,
with anything that we've done before with them along these lines that I've seen. But we do need to know what's there. We need to know what's under there, and we need to know what we can or can't do with it. Okay, but no, that's fine. I mean,
I'm just saying the
Yep.
dollar amount seems pretty high to, you know, what are we doing? You know, for $4,000 to look at the land, look at some websites, and what do we get for the $4,000? That's,
I guess that would
that's my thing.
ultimately, I'm gonna guess that depends on what they find.
Right.
Sure.
You know, the more that they find when they're doing that initial big picture analysis will dictate what they do when they go out and do the site visit. And the more they find, the more work they're gonna end up doing.
Right.
So they don't really know a whole lot now when they're doing this proposal, and hopefully they don't find anything, but you never know.
Right.
Mayor, can I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Bill, mindful of timeframes we got on this diligence period and we're on this clock already. Maybe it's here and I didn't read it, but how long will it take to get a phase 1 done?
I don't know, he did tell me about that.
The phase 1, I believe, looks like 30 days after receiving a signed proposal.
Right.
Yeah.
Then the Alta land title survey will be 10 to 14 days following the authorization to proceed.
So
I
those
believe
2
all
will
of
be
these
done. at the same-
Fall within the time frame
Well, within-
that we
yeah.
need.
So then with respect to TEP, which in my experience can be sort of an uncertain thing, what does the timing on that look like? And if something flows out of TEP that needs to be addressed, how does that affect timeframes potentially?
Well, sometimes TEP takes 60 days to go through the process, and then you have to submit it and to their meeting, and then you have the comment period. So that's the wetland delineation boundary is probably gonna be the thing that's gonna control the scope or the schedule.
But isn't that only if we're proposing to do something? At this point, we're not proposing to do something. We're just assessing the
Yeah.
wetland area and knowing what kind of wetland and that piece of it. So I'm just,
The TEP is going to basically approve the wetland boundary. And,
Okay.
and make sure that they agree with what we came up with.
They being the state.
They being
the county.
County.
And Bill might have perspective, because you did speak to the county on the time frame. Would you mind?
Does everybody know
Reminding
what
us.
TEP is? I don't.
Technical evaluation panel.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of the evaluating body of wetland delineation?
Mayor, members of the council, I have met with the county and they feel that we could, as long as we're not making any alterations to that wetland, that we can get that approval done fairly quickly. So if we can go forward with that, it should be a pretty easy, I think, process to follow through with.
And kind of more in the weeks time frame than months?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that the indication you received, was that this wouldn't be
Right. I met with
delayed?
Gary Griffin and we should be able to, once we get that information, they have meetings on a weekly basis so that we can meet with them and move that process forward very quickly.
Okay. Are there any other questions? So entertain a motion to, on the matter in front of us.
So.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead, Jenny, please.
I was just debating on whether or not to mention another thing that you have later on in your agenda, which might just give perspective for this item is we will have a resolution that the city will be able to reimburse itself for out-of-pocket expenses upon bond issuance. So anytime we spend money on a project now in anticipation for a bond issuance, we don't have to, but we can include those funds in that bond amount so that sometimes you look at this and feel like we're using our unreserved funds or we're spending, cash out of pocket. We can recoup that later on during that process. So I just wanted to give that perspective to the council now, if that's a part of maybe what you're thinking about right now for.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the proposal not to exceed $20,700 for the phase 1 environmental site assessment, wetland delineation boundary, and Atlas NSPS land survey title, project management fees as proposed. Again, not to exceed $20,700.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public Works request to advertise for Public Works maintenance position. Joe, did you want to? Cool.
Or Tom, maybe?
Or Tom's here. I'm sorry. Well, Joe's liaison. I just.
Good evening. This is concerning the position that we talked about during the budget season last year. We had agreed that we would be adding this position come June, and so we're simply asking for permission to begin advertising that position so that we can stay on schedule to put somebody on staff by the end of June.
I'll make a motion to approve the advertising to fill the new maintenance tech position.
I'll second.
Okay. I do want to say thank you, by the way, to your crew. I've heard from Amber that they've been awesome helping her with the park stuff because I know she's swamped, her and Jeff are swamped. So this will be an additional help for that. So, so if you could let the guys know, we appreciate it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So the mayor just said you can take half of this new position out of the parks budget.
Sounds good to me.
That's what I heard.
That's where the money's at. don't you?
What parks budget?
You let Amber know that tomorrow. It's really nice knowing you. Uh, 2024-2025 Nisswa liquor license renewals. We need, I mean, just,
An annual reminder for me that there's beer for sale at Fritz's Resort.
that's right. I'll make a motion that we accept the license renewals as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Actually, on that note, Jenny, is there not a liquor application for the new restaurant going where the old triangle was yet? Or is that pending based on
Not yet, too soon.
too soon?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Waiting for the fuel sample to go a little deeper.
Okay, next item is the maintenance agreement between the city of Nisswa, Crow Wing County for St. Columbo. The standard agreement we have every year, I believe, and nothing's changed.
No changes. Every 4 years, I believe we update this, but same as previous renewal. No concerns on from either party. I think things are working well.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the maintenance agreement between the city of Nisswa and Crow Wing County for St. Columbo Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Downtown master plan proposals, Bethany.
I'm just going to jump in real quick here and just thank the council for some time to have a conversation about our downtown master plan proposals tonight. Tonight, we are looking for some high-level feedback, just some broad recommendations that we can use to hopefully continue to move this conversation forward, as mentioned in the memo, and Bethany will go through and kind of highlight some of our conversations we've had internally in the office, but going through this process and utilizing a document like a downtown master plan that gives us a roadmap, I think is a really great initiative that we've been discussing and want to continue to talk about. Tonight, we're not looking for feedback from the council as far as specific proposals. We're looking for components of the process or outcomes that you would like to see. I certainly would like to know if there's a scope of services that we can aim towards. Initially, we didn't set a budget for this, but certainly now that we have some perspective on what the information we're looking for would take to put together, we would appreciate some guidance on that. And really just overall thoughts and feedback we can use to continue this conversation. So with
Actually,
that,
on that note, Jenny, I was curious though, what would the council motion be looking to achieve then?
kind of depends. I think we're looking to get feedback to see where everyone perspective after seeing the proposals received. We certainly think from a staff perspective that there is value to continue the conversation. And so if there's ways to focus some of this to bring some of these closer to comparison, that we can then go back to them and say, would you be able to modify your proposal based on some feedback so that
Okay.
we can use to get them a little more in sync?
So we may not necessarily need a motion, just to.
Possibly, correct, yes.
Bethany.
Good evening, Mayor Ryan. Thank you, Councilman. Included in your packet are 4 downtown master plan proposals that the city received from Bolton and Mink, HKGI, Widseth, and the New Northern. We are looking tonight, like Jenny said, just to get a discussion started on the scope of the proposals, the budget as each proposal had, and just to get that initial feedback as the direction of where you would like staff to go with this. From the city planner's perspective, the downtown master plan is a comprehensive roadmap for upcoming and future development. I feel that that's very important to have. It's important to engage the public and get an understanding for what property owners, business owners, stakeholders need and want. An understanding of priorities. This would help us with, especially infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, but the insight into our outdated and insufficient stormwater. to know what is needed to responsibly accommodate growth and development, the impacts of individual wells in downtown, all of those items would benefit from a downtown master plan to be addressed. Another great thing about having a downtown master plan done is the coordination and efficiency. It saves time and money in the long run. There's more a holistic approach instead of a pieced together plan, which is the plan that we've been going with for quite some time. Solutions to existing problems such as the congestion, the pedestrian movement, snow storage, all of that could be addressed with the downtown master plan, supporting and building on our thriving business community. Our downtown master plan could help steer drivers and pedestrians safely to our downtown, manage that pedestrian movement, maximize their experience and convenience while they're here. It could also help identify opportunities for business owners, the city, potential developers. I think the only downside of all of it is cost. I think it's pretty clear that it would be beneficial to have. I think it's necessary to have. Tom and I were talking and he said it's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You wouldn't do that. And so for future development, it would be really great to have that clear roadmap, to know when we're planning something that is what this community wants. And they've had a chance to speak up. They've had a chance to look into these things. But like I said, the cost is of concern. I'm sensitive to that as well. My aim is not to have a plan of pretty pictures. I do not, I think it's really important that we have a plan that contains the information, the feedback, and the direction that we need for the city.
Questions for Bethany, Mark?
I know the work of two of these companies, but my question is, which one are you steering towards?
At this point, we haven't done any sufficient examination of the plans themselves and of the proposals. Our aim is to, after the feedback that we get tonight, to thoroughly look through, put together a very unbiased way of looking through it and making sure that, each plan, we're comparing apples to apples. And that's what we would do moving forward based on the discussion tonight. As far as a general recommendation, there are certain ones that we like. I think there are a couple that price-wise, maybe.
Which one are those?
Out of scope, but
Out of
so
scope,
if
yeah.
we can, so maybe a little guidance with this. I think first of all, some feedback on our initial thoughts about cost. We're comparing the process we went through with the Parks Master Plan. We spent $32,000 on our Parks Master Plan. Certainly with what we asked for with the downtown master plan, we have asked for a significant amount of detail that is not what we received with the Parks Master Plan. So there's a difference there and there is a disconnect. So hence why you see some of the, increased costs. So part of this is getting feedback from the council on, does the cost give you enough pause to set this aside and revisit this at another time? Or can we have some guidance to work with? Because I think there's opportunity for some of the proposals to scale down and maybe some to ramp up a little bit in detail to get more comparable. And then look at potentially saying we can probably split costs over multiple calendar years to assist with budget impacts. It's certainly doable based on the timeline that I think pretty much all of the proposals will go into 2025. So shouldn't be an issue as far as splitting the costs into different fiscal years. But that's something, if that helps to, that we're maybe looking for feedback.
So
Anything else, Mark? Bruce, did you have any questions? No. I think I've narrowed it down to two, and I did discuss. I read these. It was riveting. I read them, all four of them. I took two of them out of because of cost. HKGI and the New Northern. I just set aside due to cost. But when I looked at the downtown master plan from Woodseth and Bolton and Mick, we've worked with both firms before, but I don't. And I talked this over with Bethany, and it was the nuts and bolts that she needs, what the staff need to do their job, to put it together so we have the right information. That was the kicker for me. I think there's stuff in both in some of the plans that could be added. I think there's stuff that could be taken out. But the main thing for me is making sure that decision moving forward with this is that staff and then future staff will have the data they need to do their job. I've worked with Tom now for what, 8 years, Tom? Why there was not storm sewer put in downtown when they had the road ripped up, I think befuddles everybody. And again, the council at the time decided not to do it, fine. But did staff have all the data they needed to sit down in front of the council and say, yeah, you do need to do it? So we got to make sure staff has what they need. So I would like to see, you know, us narrow it down to 2 and send staff back to do exactly what the city planner is suggesting, that they could sit down and look at it and deal with, you know, narrow it down, keep the ball moving forward. I mean, if they want to include all 4 of them with that, fine, then all 4 of them can take another shot. But I think moving it forward, keeping the ball moving, but narrowing it down to what we actually need and what can be done without what did somebody not put in? And then what did somebody put in that we don't need? For example, you know, do we need a traffic study? I don't, you know, those kinds of things. But I would like to see us. At first, I was thinking we'd set a dollar amount not to exceed, and then let staff boil it down from there. Or we can come back in June and hopefully they'd have time by then to boil it down. We do have to remember, city planner is a department of 1. And things are getting busy. So.
Very similar to when we discussed last year about the Go Lake bike trail coming through and the project management capabilities that we actually have in-house versus knowing what we are going to need to be able to bring in via third party. I think Amber was the first one to raise her hand saying, yes, I'm going to be needing support on this. It's also very important, I think, for all of us to remember on this council, the city, and then also publicly, is that as the city is going through the due diligence of acquiring this land, we're doing it for a couple major functions, one of which is to be a center hub for new city water. Well, ultimately, at some point in time, there will be city water from that specific point that will come north into downtown for distribution, so we can get multiple businesses off a common well point in a garden hose. So, meaning that there's going to be major infrastructure changes that will take place during that course of time. What time will that be? Hard to dictate. None of us may be up here at that point in time, but it's like what the previous councils have done for us to set us up for success. And if we can give a roadmap for what our vision was for the reasons why we did what we did with the Nisswa COU land versus having downtown reimagined, it's going to be able to provide us a lot of expertise in areas and that many of us may not have that expertise. Putting water in the ground is one aspect, but we have overhanging lines all through the course of downtown that can help improve that landscape. It's going to be a complete facelift when something like that comes through. So being able to have that expertise is important. I think last guidance that I would have for the process is for you, Bethany, is make sure that you're comfortable with some of the presentations that you like. And if we want to go best and final on it, or if we want to boil it down to who you think you're most comfortable working with in price range, and then revisit this next month, or set a timetable to be able to revisit that later and then determine the actual cost impacts from this budget, if it's coming out of the unreserved funds, or if we're going to actually try to plan for it through the course of 25. So that's all I can give you.
Thank you.
So I guess, excuse me, a couple things. First of all, before looking at any of these, you know, I've kind of asked this before and I don't know that I've still got the answer, but what are we trying to solve? What are we trying to fix? What are the top 3 to 5 needs for the town? John, you just talked about needs. Jesse, you just talked about water, timeline, future. But with doing this plan now and looking ahead for our needs for the next 10 years with a plan like this or something, let's establish, you know, Bethany, you brought up, like Tom said, we're building a house without a plan. But before we have the plan, let's figure out what we want in the plan. What are we trying to fix? What are we trying to solve? What are we trying to look for in the future? Let's first define a few of the things the town currently needs, where we currently think we're gonna go, and look at what proposal is the best. Is the water the need that we're trying to fix with this plan? Is the parking the need we're trying to fix with the plan? Is it the storm sewer, what we're trying to fix with the plan? What are we looking for out of this? And I don't know, I'd ask anybody in the room to tell me what the needs are, the top 3 needs, the top 5 needs. I mean, we have everyone here from Pam with the chamber, different perspectives, but what are we trying to fix? We're looking at spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I don't disagree with anybody on the point, but I'm just saying, let's first come up with what our vision is on what we're trying to do with the plan, so we have it in place. So the plan represents our vision to move ahead with the building and with the process. And I don't feel like we have the clear vision and the 3 to 5 things, whatever, set in place yet. I don't know. And so I guess I'm opening up for anybody to name off 1, 2, 3 of
Okay.
these.
I'll give you my 5.
Sure.
Okay, I've got parking, storm
Okay.
sewer, water, the realignment of some streets if need be, and accessibility. How do we move people a little bit better through? I mean, another thing you have to look at too is like with the events that we have, how can we get the flow better with people? How can we handle the people that are there so we don't interrupt with our fire department and police? I mean, those are some of the things we have to look at. Those are mine. Actually, I
Right.
put 6 in there, so those are my 6.
No, and does that correspond with,
But
Bruce and John
right,
and everybody around with Pam, with Tom? I guess that's what I'm kind of asking. I'm almost saying, hey, why don't we come up, us or whoever, what are these needs? And then go back to these people and say, as you guys put in your plan together, here are needs that we want that need to be addressed in the town, and I guess, I don't know, maybe there's a list already out there.
Yeah, so these proposals were a direct response to the RFP that we put out, which detailed all of the things that we were looking for. I can speak, Tom has a long list because of the road
Right.
bond and because those are some substantial changes that are going to be taking place. And he's, I think, the one on the timeline, more so than I am. I'll help anybody develop anything. I don't need a plan. I mean, we can go with our comp plan and we can go with our ordinance. However, to have that, the coordination of making sure that we're not redoing something.
Right.
My biggest concern is that we have a 90% impervious in downtown, but we don't have the infrastructure to support that. So we're allowing development at a rate that's not supportable. And so I would like this plan to identify how much storage volume we need, where it's going to potentially go. Now, obviously, we're not going to get any engineered plans, but we're going to get the detailed information that maybe we can start looking for where we're going to be putting these things. I think it's a given if we rip up Main Street. I hope that the utilities go in the ground at that
Mhm.
point, whether we have water at that point or not, and those kinds of things. I know, Tom, if you want to come up and speak about the road bond, there's alignment of streets, there's the new pickle. There's all of those different things, and there's a lot of different ways that we can be a little bit more efficient in our planning process.
When we first started talking about the idea of a downtown master plan, it probably predates most of the people in this room. And I think, Mark, you kind of hit on a little bit, when we have these events, really shows that nothing's coordinated. The post office, how the post office functions downtown. We all know that's terrible. So do you move it? Is there a better location within the downtown for it? Is there ways to move traffic through town, one-way streets or some other way to deal with that? These are some of the things we were hoping that this would identify. Storm sewer, with the last road bond, there was an idea for that. That was a $2 million, I think at the time, expense to do storm sewer. Well, that all needs to be coordinated. The way I see this downtown master plan working out is it's kind of like if you had a map that you could unfold for Disney World, where are all the rides? Well, in our case, the rides are gonna be, what are the different engineering projects? Well, one thing's gonna be the storm sewer. The other one's gonna be, water system, sidewalks, ADA. This plan coordinates all of them. For instance, when you build a pickle, where are you gonna put the loading dock? Well, this helps identify that, because it'll look at the traffic patterns through town, when the town's busiest, when does Terry get his deliveries? How do you coordinate that? What's the best way to use that? The fire department, getting them through town, is there a better way to do things? This would be the starting point for that. It's hard to justify the expense, but on the other hand, I look at it as, how many times have we redone engineering projects? I think this would coordinate them and hold them together, so that as the council changes or staff changes, it's a place where this stuff all comes back together and is in a recognizable document that lives.
Everybody will look at the cost and say, yeah, that's a concern, but like you just said, if you go put something in the road, or you forget to put something in the road, your costs will double. They'll go up. So by having a plan, and we know where things might go, what our needs are, we're going, you do it in one strike, one plan.
Now, to Joe's point, identifying all these things. I think Bethany's RFP did a pretty good job of starting that, but if there are some changes to that, some things that are too much, too little, now's the time for you folks to review that, see, does that make sense to you, what we're asking for, or is there something we missed, something you don't think is important? And we can always adjust that accordingly, or at least come and talk to us and say, hey, why is this thing in the RFP?
So I've heard a lot of infrastructure, but is this going to touch on any sort of, hey, for instance, the hotel was looking at remodeling into a bigger housing development. There's been apartments talked about by the school in the past, some stuff like that. Other than infrastructure, is it going to touch on different zoning within the town, 3 stories?
Not to my knowledge with
Not-
this plan.
With this plan, it's just the infrastructure master plan then.
Infrastructure, wayfinding signs, pocket park placemaking, those items will be addressed. And I'm all ears for any ordinance or zoning revision that you want to see done. And there's avenues for that in addition to this. I don't think it needs to be part of this plan. Maybe if we want to explore that as a community, it'd be great to get feedback during the downtown master plan. What do people want to see downtown? I hear a lot about walkability. I hear a lot about, we want to live close to downtown, right now we have the ability to, I think there's a lot of zoning already in place is what I'm saying, is that there's a lot of different things that can be done.
But also identifying mixed use opportunities, right?
Absolutely. That was
So-
that was
Right.
in
Yes.
the RFP was to help
Yep.
locate those mixed use opportunities, also infill development and what we can do in the meantime to meet those goals. Mhm.
Parking,
Oh, isn't that
is
fun?
that something that would be addressed?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was just bringing that up because, all of a sudden if there is a spot for an apartment building to go in, that's gonna impact traffic, road, all that, if that's gonna be allowed or talked about as part of it.
Yeah. This is just downtown, though. I don't know if downtown has zoning that would support, or even any property right downtown that would support those apartment buildings. However, looking past just the downtown, that's what we want to see, is we want to have that walkability, but not just apartment buildings. We want like row homes and condos and fun things like that too.
It's also an opportunity to engage the community in a variety of different ways, to ask those questions, to see if there are things we're not thinking of from a city perspective that we need to consider and we need to incorporate into future planning. So I think that's also a part of that having a third party go through that process, like the Parks Master Plan, which did that part of it very well, engaging in options and talking about potential solutions and getting feedback on, we really like this direction, we don't like that direction, that type of thing as well. So that does give us some really good information about what the community is seeing, what the needs are, what they'd like to, needs versus wants certainly, but also just what their vision is for downtown as a part of, maintaining the atmosphere that we have and also improving the function of it as well. If I could, just for some guidance with this conversation, I think in talking with Bethany a bit about the proposals, some are probably a little bit more detailed than we need. And, one of them is likely looking in need of additional detail. So we're probably looking in the 120,000 range, if that gives you perspective on what we would consider to be. I think some things can come off of some of them and then add to some of them. So if you're inclined to keep the conversation going, again, recognizing this is a significant commitment and investment in this conversation, that would potentially get us to get us to move forward to say, how can we bring those, all of maybe the 3 proposals into that range, see what they look like, and help us to then be able to evaluate and bring you a recommendation in June. If that helps, is that fair? I think just,
Gives you enough time.
yes.
I could live with that. I mean, I agree, the costs are staggering, but
They
the
are.
cost of everything is just crazy. So, but it's nothing compared to what the price tag of the actual infrastructural things that are gonna happen eventually will be. So,
One positive that might come out of this, we've looked a little bit at the overhead power, for instance. If you do a downtown master plan, part of this is, it's gonna engage the business community and ask them, what do they want? In their sidewalks or the power. Well, right now, it's a 6 or 7 figure to bury the power in town. Well, why do the engineering on that, which will be, at least tens of thousands of dollars to figure that out. If community says, no, we don't even want to go there, we can save that money. So this plan would help us identify, that's one thing we can scratch.
Mhm.
Or if it's still important to them, we know we can have confidence to keep pursuing it.
mhm.
Well, I know when we worked with the Parks Master Plan, it was kind of hard to get a lot of the public involved in everything. We tried, we did. Can we engage with Pam and the chamber to also get the businesses in to see what their, like you said, their input also? I mean, because that's important. Because I don't want just 3 business owners to come in and say, this is, yeah, we agree with that. And then later you have 20 of them saying, we'd never wanted that. So, I mean, there has to be more engagement. There has to be more willingness from the business owners to come forth and say yes, and that, maybe not just those that are in downtown also. Let's get some from, I mean, all of the businesses that are in town. I mean, to see what their input is also. Because in the long run, they may be impacted by this too. But one last thing. Would you feel easier if we just had said, these are the 2 we'd like you to compare, or shuffle down 4 and come back, in June?
Whatever the council is comfortable with, I'm comfortable with going through each one, and presenting, what we feel would be best out of each one. Just to let you know about the community engagement, the idea behind the community engagement would be involve all stakeholders. And that would be, each of these proposals has a heavy focus on that community engagement.
Okay,
I would say you're running it. Let's wait to see what you recommend
right,
after you review.
right.
Does the
Did we
council
give you
have-
any direction?
Yes.
Okay. So I think if, like Joe says, you whittle it down and we respect your,
I would say we come back in June, have you look at it. I think the dollar amount that the city administrator suggested would be the top end.
Mhm.
Okay, and then, that would give you the opportunity to go through them if you wish to go through all 4 of them in fairness. And see what can be eliminated or whatever, or added, whatever the case may be. To get it down to within our ballpark. if
Can
that's-
we put it back for RFP for a best and final? Or is this it?
We will likely engage,
Required-
We
I mean,
will
if you-
engage. I don't know if we would put out an RFP again.
right? We'll just
Um,
re-engage those who have submitted to say, here's some adjusted parameters. Would you like to adjust and work with that?
Yes, they were all very, in the proposals, they do say that they're willing to work and adjust to meet our needs. And so we don't need to put it back out for an RFP.
Okay.
I know that I don't have a timeline, but I know certain people do. That would like this information. And if we could get started this summer, it would be really critical that we get the summer feedback and we get going, and get that engagement started while we have the high volume of people in town.
Okay, works for me.
Was the council comfortable with that?
Yes.
120 would be the top dollar amount, and then
Yes.
we'll let you guys whittle it down and bring it back.
Appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Bethany and Tom.
Thank you.
Item number 7, approve the new council liaison assignments. So we're doing here with the addition of Councilman London. Been wanting to do this actually for a couple of years. Just don't know why we didn't. But we want to eliminate the fire department liaison and the police department liaison and put it all under one public safety liaison. So that one liaison would work with both departments because they're both intertwined. And Mr. London was interested in doing that. And he's got experience in that line. So it was discussed with Councilman Fraley and Councilman Zahn, who were reluctant to give up anything because they just didn't know what they're gonna do with their spare time now. But kidding. So that was the recommendation or the adjustment that we wanted to make. So if there's any questions or issues with that, or anybody has anything to say or whatever, otherwise we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 council liaison appointments as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. And then the other item is the committee assignments, which adds Mr. London to the Budget and Finance Committee as well as the rest of us. So I'll make a motion that we accept the as amended, the commission and committee appointments as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Memo from the city administrator reference to THC cannabis ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. So tonight I'm looking for some council feedback regarding a couple of proposed changes with respect to THC and cannabis ordinances. So specifically, requesting the council to approve initiating an ordinance amendment process that would repeal our existing THC moratorium and establishing a THC ordinance and a licensing process. As my memo outlines, with the history of the city and placing the moratorium and then extending that last year, that moratorium will be required to end in January. And with that, we need to either decide if we want to have a licensing process in place or if we will just let that licensing process happen at the state level. That will happen regardless, and there will be structure in place that the state is still working on navigating the regulation framework for that. So there will be some engagement between the state to the city when there are applicants for a THC license. But the question between now and then is, does the city want to repeal the moratorium and allow businesses to start to sell THC products? We do have representatives here from Roundhouse Brewery that would like to speak to the council and provide their perspective on THC specifically. Then following that, a discussion with the council would be appreciated regarding drafting a new cannabis ordinance. Again, that would be effective in January 2025. What I know at this point is there are draft ordinances being drafted through the Office of Cannabis Management and from some other city officials who I think are working with the state in that regard. So I will have something to review to the council either in June or July for an ordinance that we will need to have in place regardless if the state process is complete and ready in January. When I attended a Blade Act meeting a couple of weeks ago, they informed me, there was said that the city needs to have their local ordinances in place, kind of regardless of where the state is at in their process. So we should have something to ensure that the different types of licenses available, there's somewhere around a dozen to 15 potentially for different types of businesses that we have a structure in place. Should the council want to do that so that we can regulate, distance from schools and things like that. For those types of businesses. So the other question I have with respect to cannabis, I think I know the answer, but it's a fair question to ask the council is if you're interested in pursuing a municipal dispensary or not.
Now, the
Certainly.
question I have about that, now that you said that, I don't mean to interrupt, is that a one-time license fee through the state to be able to have a dispensary, or is that an annual cost?
It's an annual cost regardless if you're talking about a municipal or just a regular business.
Right.
It's an annual license.
What is that? What is that fee?
It depends on the type of license.
What's the top?
I don't know offhand.
Right, because I can't find any of that information.
Yep,
anywhere.
that's all still work in process. I believe some of them are initially $500 with renewals at $1,000. The city will have some structure as to how much you can't charge more or up to a certain amount. So we'll have to work within a framework with that. But depending on the type of business, small business, larger business, wholesaler, all those things, it's fairly complex. And so it'll be appreciated that the people working on those draft ordinances will get those distributed out the next couple of months for us to work from. So looking for feedback tonight about the THC piece, if we want to work to repeal that and have something in place for the rest of 2024. And then conversation around cannabis specifically, if it's municipal dispensary is on the table or not, just so I know.
Well, me personally, I'd keep the moratorium in until the 31st of December this year, 2024, for our ordinance to come in January 1st of 2025. One, I don't think the city needs to get into municipal. That's just my opinion. I don't think the city needs to own one. I'd also like to not, if we do end up with a dispensary, it would have to be at least 1 mile from the school. Outside of a 1 mile radius.
Okay, thank you.
There was somebody here to address this.
Also on that, also too, I wouldn't want any, if you can't smoke a cigarette in a bar or restaurant, you can't be smoking anything. Also, I wouldn't want it to be, we were talking about no smoking in the parks.
So those are a couple different things. So we follow the Clean Indoor Air Act.
Right.
So there would be no smoking allowed regardless of cigarette or cannabis or, vaping or anything like that. We did discuss a handful of months ago, maybe last summer, as far as the smoking in the parks. It was determined by the council at that time, we were going to be on a wait and see. If there were issues that arose, we would bring that to the council's attention to create an ordinance to restrict that. I have not heard that there have been any issues or concerns brought forth from the police chief or the parks director. So certainly if the council wants us to engage in that, we can, but that was the direction.
Right. I've
Some
had
kind
a
of it.
few people ask me that have children that go to the park and they said, are you going to allow that to be smoked in the parks?
There is also state law that restricts smoking where children are present. So that does exist, and the police department would have a mechanism to address that if there was an issue.
We had somebody wanted to address the council on this matter.
Yes, we do. We have
If they would
representatives from
please come on
Roundhouse.
up to the podium and
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilman, for your time. Dan Meyer, one of the co-owners of Roundhouse Brewery. And just want to address the THC side of things, not the cannabis side of things. But 2 years ago, when the state passed a bill allowing breweries to produce and sell THC infused beverages. That's what, again, created the Wild West of this issue. And I know that was probably central, the unstructured and no rules part at that time. You know, I'm sure probably led to you putting a moratorium in, and us too sat on the sidelines that said, well, we don't really want to get into this until we know what the guidelines are. Since then, there have been significant guidelines put in place and testing procedures for the beverage industry for producing THC infused beverages. And we have an opportunity. We've been approached by a company down the metro area to be a contract producer for them for distribution outside of this area and into the metro area and stuff. And so we find ourselves a little bit at a competitive disadvantage in that with this moratorium in place on producing what is a legal adult beverage at this point. So what I do have is some literature of the testing procedures that we would have to go through for every batch being tested, all the guidelines that are needed to be put in place. We are not producing any THC. It would be sourced from a third party. We are just, again, putting it into a beverage and at the limits that we would be, that are set by the state for that. We also come to you know, looking at this opportunity because there's been a significant shift in our distribution and in what people are drinking these days. And people are drinking less beer and they're drinking more alternative beverages, the cocktail in a can, the seltzer world, the hard iced teas. Those are all actually taking away from the beer business in all honesty, and our distribution side of the businesses went down. So we find ourselves at a need to, again, produce an alternative beverage to keep our business growing and while afloat and then growing as well. So are there any questions that you would have?
I have none. I'm very up to date on everything THC, cannabis, CBD. I've seen the effects in California and Colorado firsthand. And I know how those states have dealt with it. I think Minnesota kind of went nilly-willy, like you said, Wild West, but we'll see how things go. Hopefully they'll have a little bit better control oversight than other states. I understand the alternative, but what you're looking for.
Well, I would ask that you, in light of that, you're going to have to lift the moratorium at the end of the year, if you could lift it next month. Again, we have an opportunity here to sort of enter a market that is fairly virgin right now. There are places, I mean, there's a brewery in Wadena that's producing it as well right now. So it's not just metro-based breweries, but there's an opportunity here. And then in a year from now, when the licensing comes into impact, those license fees are going to be significant. But we have an opportunity to test the market to see, is it going to be worth for us to produce a product like this? So I guess that's my ask is, can we lift the moratorium earlier? And doesn't have to be on the cannabis side. I'm just asking for THC infused beverages. I don't even care about any other product per se. It is available. You can go to a liquor store and buy it now. So it's not like,
So what is your known knowledge, the difference between cannabis and THC?
I'm going to refer to my brewer for that. Where'd she go? She's much more on the chemistry side than I am. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm the head brewer over at Roundhouse. You're basically using two different terms for the same thing. So right now, I mean, THC is a cannabis product. That is why it is regulated through the Office of Cannabis Management. So we are just basically looking to take that and put it into a beverage without alcohol and enter a market that's highly competitive, that is taking over the industry right now.
What kind of strains are you looking at?
We're looking at a whole spectrum THC.
But which strains of THC are you looking at?
THC.
Okay, that's a non-answer.
Well, it's a whole spectrum. So it's going to be a little bit of THCA, a little THCB, there's a little CBD into it. We also have another distillate where we can do just pure CBD. But right now, the hot market is going for the actual, like, call it a Delta 9 THC beverage, if that.
Yeah, because I know a
helps you.
lot of, some of them are prefer the sativas, but so.
Oh.
That, you know, on the, anyway.
These are beyond that. We're not like, it is being isolated to such a small molecular compound that it really doesn't matter if it's coming from a sativa, from an indica, from just a regular hemp plant. We're just having a very, very basic molecular product.
Mhm.
Question. Well, I think we're gonna have to do something about our, obviously, we're not gonna have a choice by the end, so we're gonna have to start the process on an ordinance. But Tom, maybe you can answer this for me. Can a business, you know, we have a moratorium in town of selling it. You can't sell it in town, correct?
Correct. You cannot sell, you cannot produce, you cannot do
Can they
anything.
produce it if it's not being sold in town?
No, no.
Mm-mm.
Manufacture,
No.
and all of that is off the table.
Okay, that's, I just wanted to make that clear. Okay. That was my question, because if it wasn't gonna be sold here, but okay.
But you could change the moratorium to allow that.
So.
Well, right, no, yeah, I hear, you know, I'm just trying to, because, regardless of how I feel about the whole THC thing, which if anyone ever wants to know, I'll be happy to tell you. But, we're gonna have to initiate an ordinance amendment process. We're gonna have to get an ordinance in place. I, for one, look at how the state has rolled this whole thing out, and I certainly don't trust them to do it right at their level for a local level.
Mhm.
So we need to have our own ordinance to make it right, so that it works for us, you know, up here. And that doesn't mean just for city, I mean, for businesses, for everybody here in town, so this is gonna work right. So it's, you know, it's here, we're gonna have to deal with it. So, and then, you know, the only question is for the council, do we remove it immediately? Or do we leave it in place until we get an ordinance in place? And how long would that take? Councilman Fraley has told us his opinion. Does everyone else give their opinion
There's
about?
another thing there, though, right? Do you consider modifying it somewhat to carve out what these people are asking?
Beverage,
Okay.
yep.
Which is to allow production here for distribution, not within this area. I think that's what I heard.
Okay,
I think the standard process with anything like this, though, is first let it go to Bethany to put a plan in place for us and then come back to us. That's kind of.
So a draft
practice.
ordinance has been
Yeah.
provided to departments, including planning and zoning, police, public works, I think parks. So that has been sent out to get their feedback, so that we would use that to incorporate. If the council directed staff to pursue any sort of change to the moratorium, we would bring something back to you in June or whatever month you decide. We would schedule the public hearing and work forward to that process. So yes, all departments will be engaged for their feedback and input to make sure that this will work.
when was it distributed to them?
A week or so ago, knowing we weren't going to be doing something tonight, we would be working towards that.
Are they going to have as much problem finding information from the state as you? The rest of us? I mean, where's the state? I mean,
The state has its system in place right now for THC. There's very simple to create. Yes, thank you, Dan. But yes, it's very simple to update the ordinance.
This is what we get invited.
okay.
And may I?
I've got that. Thanks.
One thing that I found, so I'm part of our Minnesota Craft Brewers Guild, and the Craft Brewers Guild has accepted that this is our next new wave product. You know, first it was ciders and then it was seltzers, and now it is these THC beverages. Our can distributor has gone from doing all cans for beer to half THC beverages, half alcohol beverages within just 2 years. This is a very, very steep market right now. Currently, we are able to register with the state and get production going for very, very little cost, like Dan had said, to see if this is even really a viable option for us to pursue. There is a lot of regulation through the state already. We are going to be policed from federal and state agencies. So, you know, even if you did lift this and allowed us to start a beverage production, we are still going to be under quite a bit of oversight. And at our last training that we did down at the state with the Office of Cannabis Management, you know, they really enjoy working with the breweries because we're already so used to adhering to so many regulations. We have to do a lot of documentation. We have to test everything. We have to monitor everything. We have to keep things secure. And we're already very, very good at doing that. So we are kind of one of the most trusted companies to move ahead with this. And I would hope that you guys would trust us with that as well.
You know, it's gonna be a problem no matter what, and it's gonna change the turf up here, you know, when you bring that stuff in here. And it's you know, Nisswa is what it is. It's the turtle races, it's the Dairy Queen, it's downtown Nisswa in the parks. And, you know, you can post it, you know, you can't smoke the weed in the parks, and I'm here to tell you, people are gonna do it, and they're gonna do it with this other stuff. So it's gonna be a big problem. So you need some time, we need some time to really look at this and to make the right choices.
And it is something that's already in your community. I mean, obviously, right in downtown Nisswa, it's not allowed to be sold, but you go a mile in any other direction, this is something that's already here and really not causing problems.
I would disagree with that.
Yeah, okay.
As a first responder, I could invite you out to see these people taking this drug and what it does to them. We're responding to them in this town, this community weekly with these drugs, and it's a big issue.
Sure.
It's gonna be a problem, and it's gonna lead to other things. And you know, you got people here that come here in the summertime with their kids and stuff like that. It's just gonna lead to other things. So we really have to take a good look at this.
On this particular issue then, are there any other questions okay. What is the council's wish? With the recommendations that are being required, or the feedback and, on the matter that's before us, what do we want to do?
You heard what I
mean,
It goes away, it all goes away, our moratorium goes away January 1st, 2025, regardless whether we do anything or not.
So if the council would maybe focus first on the THC question.
Yeah.
That'd be great. And then we can talk about cannabis.
I guess I'd make a motion that we leave the THC in place until the end of the year, so we can properly figure out what we're going to do, how we're going to regulate it in town, and take the time, the steps, research other communities, to see what we can do in this community or not do.
I'll second.
I do know that Rochester, I believe I communicated that with the city administrator. Rochester does have a dispensary that's open now. The city down there does evidently have a ordinance in place and move forward with that. I'd mentioned that to the city administrator, and but again, in all the research that's being done and everything that's being on, she's, you know, getting more information. So there, like, you know, there are some of these ordinances that are coming about. So would anyone consider, as to the city administrator's comment, that making or adjusting our moratorium based on what the business that's before us is asking, or do we want to leave it as is? So they wouldn't be able to sell it in town, but they would be able to produce it for elsewhere.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, I would.
I mean,
Because we're gonna be seeing this lifted, our hands are gonna be untied regardless of what our personal opinions are come January 1st anyway. So if this can help private enterprise, and it's not gonna be a direct effect to those around this community, I'd like to see a local entrepreneur be able to have its best shot at going to get something. That's what I would add to it as a modification.
We're still gonna have some sort of oversight on it, are we not?
Well, we're gonna have to.
well, yeah, I mean, you still wouldn't be
We
able,
will
they
be-
would not be able to sell their beverages in town until the moratorium is lifted. So they still are not, you're not gonna see any of their beverages being sold into the THC or anything until it becomes January 1 would be.
But even when that does become lifted, we are still gonna have the ability to say, okay, within
That
a
will
certain
be,
distance of a school district.
that will be
we can't-
determined.
No,
by-
that's totally different.
That will be determined by the ordinances you have.
Mhm.
Correct, which is
Correct.
what we will
Which we
create.
don't, but for now.
That's what
that-
I'm saying.
Yeah, so we'll still have control once we get our ordinance in place, yes. Yeah,
And we-
absolutely.
I'm
and we
just saying-
could have that,
I'm just saying, why don't we work towards the ordinance then?
Well, we will, but in the meantime, do we let the business, in this case, Roundhouse, do we let that brewery produce that product
Yeah,
for
THC.
sale elsewhere? Like,
For sale to a wholesaler and
Yeah,
not,
they're-
not retail to the
'cause-
direct.
But we still can't, the liquor store still won't be able to stock it in town until January 1st, or until our ordinance
correct.
changes.
Yep.
No, I understand that, but why don't we, why are we getting the cart before the horse? Why don't we
We're not.
put this together in an ordinance and list that then?
Because the ordinance may take till January.
If I, no,
Right.
if I can clarify, so we can bring a draft ordinance that would address all those questions to the council in June. If you are interested in a conversation about lifting the moratorium. If you're not, then we would just do the same work, but we wouldn't present it to the council till later in the year. But we certainly can go through all of those questions and provide that assurance about the process to the council at the time frame at which you would
Right.
like to see it.
To Councilman London's point though, Joe, we wanted time to really go over this with a fine tooth comb.
That's what I'm saying.
In the
Mhm.
meantime, we have a business that could go ahead and start producing a product that they're planning to sell through a distributor, not in our community. That's what I'm just trying to, can we kind of kill two birds with one stone? That gives us the time to really go over this with a fine tooth comb, but it also gives them a chance to produce their business line. That's all that's all I'm
That's all we're asking.
asking, that's all I'm looking at, I don't know, because they can't sell it in town, our liquor store is the only one in town, they can't sell it in town.
Correct. So with the motion on the floor, does Councilmember Hall, he like to amend his motion at all or still maintain?
Well, correct, that's
That's-
what I'm asking,
yeah,
you. Would you
that's-
like to amend your, for that, or do we want to leave it as is? That's, I guess.
I guess I would just leave it as is right now. Let's figure this out, you know, I mean, we can. If they want to work towards that and come back with stuff,
Could we ask you to amend it to bring us back an ordinance, proposal by the June council meeting? At least?
yeah, I guess I'm not opposed to looking at it, but, yeah, I guess my thing is, you know, I do see the other side of it. I am dealing with it on a weekly basis. I mean, everyone doesn't see it, but to Bruce's point, I don't believe that we want any of this in our town and our community. And the longer we can keep it out, the better, because I'm the one getting up in the middle of the night dealing with these people that are drinking this product, taking it however you want, and it is an issue. And so I guess right now I'll leave it to the end of the year. I don't
I
want to
agree with Joe.
Well, we have
Okay,
a
we
motion and a
motion and
second.
Second, do all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye, or nay. Motion carries. Okay.
With that, then, council looking for feedback regarding the cannabis component, specifically just looking to see if you have an interest in pursuing a municipal dispensary. My guess is no, but I would just like to ask the question to make sure I'm not missing that component of it. And then we will work to bring an ordinance amendment to you when we have drafts available and start working through that later this summer, perhaps into the fall. So just some feedback is fine for tonight.
Okay. So we need another motion? Need another-
Yes, or some feedback of some kind about the municipal dispensary, please.
On recommendation two.
Yes.
Personally, I do not want to see the city of Nisswa in business of selling cannabis products. So I think have a good understanding of everybody else's opinions on the matter. I'd be happy to make a motion unless there's any other discussions.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll make motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to not pursue a municipal dispensary,
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know.
Is
you were
it,
done.
oh, I don't know if I should be done, Jenny. Is there anything else I should be adding to that?
No, I think that's fine, because
Okay.
I will work to, like I said, I'll bring you a draft ordinance when something is available, and that will,
Okay.
like we've talked about, we're gonna have to address that at some point, so
Yeah.
we'll bring that forward to you at some point in the summer.
I agree with you, by the way. I don't want to see a municipal dispensary either. So all those, any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Which one am I on? I'm on this one.
10.
Approve a proposal for ADA transition plan.
Thank you. This is for the ADA transition plan that we spoke about last year. WIDSEF is ready to go on that, so we do need an approval, or I need a motion to approve the transition plan as WIDSEF has quoted it. I do want to just note in the proposal from WIDSEF, it does say that under the Federal Highway Administration, all local agencies with greater than 50 employees would be required to develop an ADA transition plan. Then they also follow that with, since Nisswa doesn't fit into this category, but Nisswa does fit into this category. We do have 50 employees. I did verify that it also includes part-time. So that is a requirement. This is not something that we should be without. We also talked with them about including, even though they're not located in the city right of way, the city sidewalks on Main Street. So there are some that are not city owned and they're not in the right of way. However, we feel like identifying the compliance of ADA on Main Street would be critical. Do you have any questions?
Questions, anyone?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal for the ADA transition plan for public right of way as presented.
Second.
Could we amend not to exceed?
Amend not to exceed $21,200.
You amend your second, Joe?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Resolution reference municipal land purchasing finance inquiries.
Thank you. As I noted earlier in the meeting, this resolution before you tonight is to allow the city to be reimbursed as part of a bond issuance process for any out-of-pocket expenses incurred prior to the issuance of a bond. Things like studies, due diligence, engineering, legal, et cetera, bond issuance costs, things like that. So this is a blanket resolution that will be filled in at a later date with specific amounts as they are incurred.
Does anyone have any questions for the city administrator about that?
No.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution as presented by staff on the finance inquiries.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. All those in any further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approve proposal from Duluth Archaeological Center.
Thank you. As I also mentioned earlier, this is another component of our due diligence process that council has discussed regarding the property purchase, and that would be to complete an archaeological survey for portions of the parcels that we are looking to purchase. The proposal by Sue Mulholland is a maximum cost. I will work with her to further identify and narrow the scope so that we can lower this amount, but this was just with the high level information we have at this time, knowing the number of acres that we are dealing with, wanting to cover our bases, but certainly hope to, both for her sake and for ours, try to line up the scope as specifically as we can to get some assurance that there are no concerns on the site or information we need to adjust. as part of this and then be able to move forward.
Questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from the Duluth Archaeological Center regarding the archaeological survey in an amount not to exceed $9,947.33.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Old business, request from council members on reference employee recognition discussion. Go ahead, Desi.
We did touch base about this before. So this was, do you remember? Your suggestion with public safety recognition, some annual
Oh, yes.
firefighter, police department.
So I'd like to get everybody's opinion and then make a motion so we can start to have some consensus among the team for giving letters of appreciation, some awards for recognition of service to the community, to this city, various departments, but primarily public safety. We have a phenomenal volunteer fire department force and also a phenomenal local police force that's been doing an exceptional job for us for decades. And I think it'd be very, very worthy of our time to be able to give something back to them in the sense of an event with us in attendance, not a quorum if possible, and have some sort of group to be able to come together to have some nominations be pulled through. We can do this on an annual basis to have a spring, early summer event, or maybe at the end of summer when things kind of taper down. Anybody have an opinion on that?
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea too.
You know, officer of the year, firefighter of the year.
Bingo.
Employee of the year too. I
Yeah.
mean, you can include the whole city into something like
Do the
that.
employee thing too as
Yeah.
well, the staffers.
Yep.
Council member of the year.
Yeah.
We have citizen of the year. We can do it at the same time.
Job. So, I think with that basis, some potential next steps would be perhaps the personnel committee, I guess, could, unless we want to have a committee of some sort.
I would say maybe the employee retention committee and the personnel committee could sit down together on something like this.
We could incorporate that into our meeting that we need to have
Correct.
and
Yes.
talk
Correct.
about some ideas.
Yes.
We'll add that
Okay.
too,
Yeah.
if there's
And then
support.
bring it, and council members could get their ideas to the city administrator. We can incorporate all the ideas in there, bring it back to everybody, just keep everybody in the city. Keep everybody in the loop with how it's going. If anyone has ideas, throw them back and. Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So essentially, you want council motion for this?
I think there's general support, so why don't we meet and we'll come up with something specific to
Yeah.
say, here's the plan.
I like it.
And then
Okay.
council
Works.
can vote on that as
Mark,
a new plan.
you good with it?
Mhm.
Bruce?
Yeah.
I'm good with it. Jesse?
I'm
Joe?
good with it. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council reports, Mark,
I have nothing.
Bruce? No? Jesse?
I have nothing.
Joe?
The trail opening on June 6th.
Yeah.
Coming up. Thank you for the reminder.
As for myself, I just, I wanted to take an opportunity to offer, I did this to offer an apology, to the city administrator. Her contract negotiations were handled poorly, in my opinion, and I think that, none of the employees should be put in that kind of a position. It was pretty unfair. I have heard from a few people that watched the meeting, some that subsequently watched it, and then others that, heard about it, et cetera. They just thought that it was a poor show on behalf of the council. So I just want to say, I'm sorry that it was handled that way. And moving forward, won't be we can't be dealing with things like that. I just can't deal with things like that in the future that way. We need to make it more professional. It was not very professional in my opinion, so I am sorry for that.
So am I.
Joe stole my thing because I was gonna mention the trail opening. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned. Any of the